Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/IDontWorkHereLady, where Karens mistake customers as employees and nobody can change their minds. And in this episode, OP runs into a little bit of trouble with the police after Karen and her husband accuse him of trying to poison their son. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories today. Don't forget to subscribe, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. I'm a frequent attendee to Wally World, along with my mother and my grandmother, so we have a system. My mom usually helps grandma in and out of the car, while I fetch the motorized carts for her to use. And after a typical trip to the store, we finally get out and I'm returning the cart to the store. Just before I reach the store, a lady in her van calls and asks if her mother can have the cart. Now, I know it's rude to give the cart away when someone else is waiting for it, but you must understand. When I saw this woman's mother, I was concerned that she would keel over before she even exited her car. She was as old as my grandmother, but I'm sure my grandma, who has metal pins in her shoulder and needs double knee surgery, could beat this woman in a foot race and back, so I agreed to give them the cart. Getting off the cart, I offered my arm to the woman and escorted her 3 feet to the cart and helped her in. And this is the I don't work here part. Before she sat down, she asked me, "Do you work here, dear?" And I said to her with a smile, "Nope, I don't." I was, after all, wearing a regular t-shirt, denim blue jeans, beaten up jogging shoes, and my favorite pink hoodie with a bedazzled skull on the back. I think the lady's daughter also thought I worked there for a moment because she let out a surprise thank you as she herself got out of the car. The old lady then said bless you, while she and her daughter went into Wally World and I got into my own car. My mom sort of scolded me for giving the cart away when there was someone else waiting for it. But I told them the story, and honestly, I just couldn't say no to that lady. I hope she's doing well wherever she is, and this is my one and only I don't work here lady story. Listen guys, as much as I love reading the crazy Karen ones, I love a nice wholesome story like this one, and I just had to share it. Like, it is nice to read a post where it's good humans helping other humans, right? With that said though guys, buckle up because the rest of the episode is full of Karens that we all know and love. So there's a nice country shop near me that sells all sorts of nice shirts and everyday stuff, as well as high-end country brands and coats. It was my day off and payday, so I wanted to go and treat myself. I decided to dress up nicely in a pale blue shirt, some jeans, with some boot heels, coincidentally a brand they stocked. I felt pretty good. Now notably, the shop doesn't have a uniform. The staff have to wear on-brand clothing and they're always greeting you and stuff, so it's obvious they work there. Now previously I worked in retail, so I feel for staff when the shop looks like it's been ransacked, and people just ruin all the neat folds and throw coats back wherever. So there I was, minding my own business, trying on a jacket. I decided that I need another size, so I zipped up the one I tried on and put it back on the rail. Then out of nowhere, some angry Karen standing there, like right over my shoulder, like personal space isn't a thing. So I say to her, "Oh, sorry, were you wanting to look at these?" Karen says, "No. Are you blind? I've been standing here trying to get your attention for 5 minutes. I need this in another size." She then goes off and says, "I can't believe how rude the staff is here. You can see that I'm standing there holding the jacket." To me, I just assumed that this lady was shopping and she had a jacket in hand because she wanted to buy it. I didn't get a vibe at all. So I say to the woman, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I actually don't work." And Karen interrupts me, not even listening to what I'm saying. She says, preferably, I'd like it in navy if you have it." She then thrusts the jacket towards me and says, "Go check the back." Again, I say to her, "Look, I do not work here." And at this point, you could practically see the cogs turning in her head. But rather than apologizing, she goes on a tirade and says, "Well, then why are you dressed like you work here?" I respond, "Excuse me? Literally, we're in a clothes shop. This is no uniform. I'm not wearing a name tag." Karen then goes on and says, "Well, that is just plain misleading. You shouldn't even wear that here. It's so inconsiderate." And by this point, a retail assistant walks over, all smiles, and she asks if she can help with sizes or anything. Karen points at me and says, "Does she work here?" The employee responds, "No, I'm sorry." Then why is she dressed like she works here? Hearing Karen say that, both me and the assistant were just lost for words. I gave her a few stern words after, and then she starts dropping F-bombs at the employee. The girl was on the brink of tears. Karen then stormed out saying that she was going to leave a terrible review. I apologized on behalf of Karen and for losing them a customer. The retail assistant then reappeared with the manager 2 minutes later, who then laughed and praised me for handling it diplomatically. The manager offered me a 10% goodwill discount on anything I chose, as well as a job. I've worked there for 2 years now, and I never saw Karen again. Some people just love doubling down because they can't stand to be wrong, guys. Like when she said, "You shouldn't dress like you work here because that's misleading." I would have said, "Oh geez, I'm very sorry. Next time, maybe I'll come to the store wearing nothing, Karen." With that said, it's nice that OP was offered a job, and she ended up working there for 2 years. So basically, it was an I don't work here lady yet story. On this day, I was doing some shopping after I dropped my boyfriend off at work. I had to pick up the usual groceries and such, nothing big. I decided to look at some cups and plates since my boyfriend and I just moved into a new apartment, probably about a month ago, and we don't have a ton of kitchen stuff. I put in my cart some plates, cups, and bowls that were all gray because I didn't like the other colors. But then I noticed that after I walked a little bit down the aisle, there were kitchen things that were in the color I liked. So I decided to go back and take the stuff that I'd put in my cart and put it back where I got it so I could go grab the other things that I saw. While I was putting the stuff back on the shelf, someone stands uncomfortably close to me. So I try to hurry up, thinking they want to look at something and I'm blocking the way. I also really don't like being rude to people cause I know I hate when people do that to me. So I hurry and put the stuff back on the shelf. I go to walk away to the other stuff I was going to get, and all of a sudden, I hear the woman start walking towards me. Now, I really don't think much of it because maybe she decided to not get the thing she was looking at, and maybe she saw something else and was going towards that. The woman kept walking uncomfortably close to me, and then eventually she said loudly, "So you're just gonna walk away? I was waiting to talk to you." At that, I just kind of stopped and glanced at her saying, "Huh?" The woman goes on and says, "Do they pay you to be this useless? Like, do they pay you to stand there and look like an idiot? Maybe that's why the store is so horrible. Maybe that's why it's so dirty. Maybe that's why nothing is ever right about the store, because they hire slack-jaw idiots like you that just mumble noises at customers instead of helping them." Like, the woman just loses it on me, and I say, "What the actual F are you on about, lady?" I then start walking away. I don't know what her problem is. Like, maybe she's having a bad day, or maybe she has a mental illness I don't know about, but it's not my problem. I can hear the woman taking a few loud, quick steps towards me like she's going to grab me or something. And I'm over here thinking that this woman either had some drugs hit her really hard or she's bipolar or something. I move out of the way, not really caring about the cups I wanted anymore, and I go into another aisle because I'm not having this today. If this is gonna be what it takes to get those cups, then I don't want them. I legitimately don't. Unfortunately, the woman follows me into the other aisle and she says, "What do you think you're doing? Did you not hear what I just said? Why are you not helping me?" And that's when I say, "Because I don't know how to help someone who's on whatever kind of drugs you're on, lady." Karen, hearing me say that, says, "What? Drugs? Are you accusing me of being on drugs? Are you really going to talk to a customer like that?" I say to her, "I don't care if you're a customer or the Pope's grandmother. Leave me alone, you psycho. I'm about to call the cops." Karen replies, "Go ahead and call them. Then I'll tell them that you're not helping me. They'll make you help me. It's your job." I say whatever, leave me alone, and start walking away because, yeah, I'm not dealing with whatever her problem is because it's not my problem. The woman screams at me, "I'm going to go get a manager." And I tell her, "You go do that," as I'm walking away. After that, I decide to leave the area and go pick up some other stuff I wanted, and that I was just gonna come back to those cups later because I really wanted them. I figured after a good little bit that she'd be gone. So here I am, putting the cups and bowls and stuff into my cart, when this lady walks over with a manager, and she says, "There she is. There's that stupid little bitch that wouldn't help me." The manager looks at me and says, she doesn't work here." And that's when Karen loses it. The woman starts screaming, saying, "Y'all need to stop playing. Y'all need to stop lying. She was putting stuff on the shelf. She works here." The manager tells her, "No, she doesn't. She hasn't worked here for over 2 years." Because little did this lady know, I knew the manager, and this manager remembers when I used to work here like 2 years ago. Karen says, "Oh my gosh, I'ma call corporate, I'ma get y'all fired, because no one can tell me where the hell the Doritos are." So the manager tells her the exact aisle on the opposite side of the store that the Doritos are in, and she storms off to get her Doritos, I guess. The manager says to me, that was the first time she actually mentioned she wanted Doritos. And I reply, why am I not surprised? The manager then says, "I'm going to lunch. I don't have the energy to deal with anything else right now." So yeah, I hope you found your Doritos, you crazy lady that was screaming at me and chasing me in the store. And she didn't even ask me where the Doritos were. Like, if she were to ask me where they were, I would have legitimately told her. I have no clue as to why she was in the house goods section on the other side of the store, looking for Doritos. See, that's the thing, guys. Like, if people approach strangers who didn't even work at the store and were polite about it, a lot of the times, they would actually get pointed in the right direction. But that woman was so rude. She never once tried to talk to OP, but instead, she stalked her around the store and immediately insulted OP the moment her presence was acknowledged. Who wants to help an a-hole like that? The manager should have been like, "Lady, get out of my store because we don't tolerate harassment of others here." So I work in an assisted living and memory care community. One of the things I do with residents is take them out into the community for events, shopping, going out to eat, and just getting out of the building. Because of this, I'm often seen at places helping someone, so I never fault someone who thinks I work at a place. I mean, I have a name tag, I'm helping someone find something or picking something to eat at a restaurant or taking orders. I get it. Like, if it's something I can help with and it won't take away from my residents getting help, then I will help them, but usually I give an "oh sorry, I don't work here, I work at a care community nearby," or some variation, and people usually understand. However, that's not always the case. Unfortunately, more often than I would like to think it would. Here is one tale. So on this day, I took the residents to a local Italian place for lunch specials. Now this place has been in the community for decades, and a lot of the residents remember going to it from years ago. Plus, they have good lunch deals and good food. With most of my group of 10 needing extensive assistance with picking an item from the menu, I go around and help people as needed and get everyone's order. I give the waitress my usual nod, and the waitress and I go through the orders together. The waitress today was someone who's had us before several times, so we joke a bit, go through the orders, and she checks on refills before going to put the orders in. There's also a table of 4 right next to us that she's been attentive to, but we're the only 2 groups in their front section, and I think that confused a couple of people at the table. So the food comes out for both tables. I go around my group, helping cut up things that need to be cut up, distributing the extra napkins, asking the usual salt, pepper, Parmesan people if they want it for their meals today, and helping any residents with visual impairments figure out their plating. The waitress checks in with both tables, but I'm honestly not paying much attention to them, as I'm keeping an eye on my residents. I then brought a few residents to the restroom. I was bringing the last resident back from the restroom when I walk up to one of the ladies at the 4-person table, and she was arguing with the manager. The woman then sees me and says, "There she is, she's the one playing favorites." The manager says, "Oh, her? She doesn't work here." The Karen says, "BS, she was taking orders from that table and she was helping out their every need and completely ignored our table. The only reason we got any service was because that nice lady," pointing to the waitress, "took time away from her other table to check on us. I demand you do something about this, like tell her she shouldn't play favorites to tables." And she was so obvious about it, she barely looked at us at all. Hearing Karen say that, I tell her, "Oh, I'm sorry for the confusion. I actually don't work here. I work at an assisted living." Karen stops me and says, "Stop lying. You're so judgmental. What is it about our table that makes you not want to serve us?" At that line, my entire table got very angry, and they start shouting at this lady saying, "How dare you talk to her like that? She's such a nice woman, don't talk about her like that." I start trying to calm down my table, at the very least, trying to get their attention away from Karen. The manager was still talking to the woman, and I missed parts of it, as I was trying to calm my group down. I did hear the manager say, "I'm sorry for any confusion, but she really does not work here, she helps them." The Karen says, "Stop standing up for her poor behavior. I used to love the service here, but now I see how some people are treated. Now I know I was just looked down on and disrespected." The manager says, "Ma'am, if you would just let me finish, I would be able to explain the misunderstanding." Karen says, "I'm gonna tell all my friends how you disrespect people and treat people differently." She then looks at me and says, "What is it that you don't like, huh? What's wrong with us?" At this point, I was getting really frustrated, but I'm working, and I don't want to escalate this any more than it is. Plus, it's a favorite spot for me to take the residents, with the staff being incredibly wonderful and patient with the residents, which isn't super common, unfortunately. So I decide to try something a little different. I say to Karen, "You are so mad. I would be so angry too if I felt I was being ignored and treated differently." Karen says, "Damn right, you were completely ignoring us." I replied, "I'm so sorry I didn't say anything to you. You see, when I'm out with my residents, I tend to get so focused on them and their needs. I should have said hello to you. I'm such a terrible employee." Hearing me say that, Karen says, What? Your residents?" Her face went from anger to confusion, back to grumpy, and she says, "Why do you call customers residents?" Using air quotes when she said residents. And I explained to Karen and said, "Oh, we're actually from the community down the road and we're here for lunch. We tend to call the people who live there residents." That's when the man at Karen's table says, "Honey, I don't think she works at this restaurant." Karen looks at me and says, "You don't work here?" I tell her, "Nope, I work at the community name down the road." The lady looked around the room at everyone for about a minute and then said, "Well then, why didn't anyone say that?" Her table finally made their way out, and a good half of my table just glared at her on the way out the door. Both the manager and the waitress apologized, but no apology was needed. It wasn't their fault. The entire ride home, the ones that remembered the event kept saying how mean she was, and they were so happy I helped them out, which led the ones who didn't remember the event asking what happened, with them repeating it and then the others saying similar things like before. Like, how rude, and what was wrong with that woman? At least I know my residents have my back. I love how OP handled this situation. And it's funny because a lot of the times, if these Karens actually took the time to listen, instead of interrupting people when they're trying to explain they don't work there, stuff like this would probably never happen. And guys, I really love how the residents are so attached to OP, and we're basically ready to go to war against this Karen. Talk about wholesome, right? So on this day, I'm sitting near the bar at my local restaurant, just sipping a pint and chatting to staff. I'm also doing some audio editing on my laptop, and I have a notebook and some papers on the table. So once I finish chatting, I stick my headphones back on and get back to editing. I'm staring at my laptop when I see someone waving, kind of distracting me. Now, it's not as odd, as I'm there most days and I know a lot of the locals. Looking up, it's a woman who was sat over in the corner, and there's a group of women with some kids. The Karen says to me, "Can my son play with that little Lego house?" Now, people often think I work here in some capacity. It's the kind of place with books on shelves and games and things for customers to play, so it's not unusual. Me, not really paying attention, say to the woman, "Yeah, sure, why not?" Putting my headphones back on. Fast forward 5 minutes, more waving and voices, and it's Karen's husband. The guy says to me, "What the F do you think you're doing?" I say to him, I'm editing." He then says, "And that's more important than my son's safety? My wife says you gave our son that mouse poison trap to play with. Are you trying to get him sick? Are you stupid?" I say to him, "I have never met your son, and I'm busy." He then produces a mouse bait box wrapped in tissue, and he says to me, "My son could have been poisoned. I want to speak to your manager right now." Again, I say, "I don't work here. You should probably get your son to wash his hands. That sounds gross." Karen then takes her son outside, and her husband starts to complain to the staff behind the bar, demanding a manager. Karen's husband then says to me, "What's your name?" I say to him, "None of your business. Now, if you don't mind, I have work to do." I put my headphones back on, but the guy keeps shouting at the staff behind the bar. About a minute later, Karen comes in with a PCSO in tow. For those of you outside the UK, a PCSO is a police employee with very little powers. I think they can take alcohol off underage drinkers and give out parking tickets, but that's it. The officer wanders up to me, so my headphones come off again. And the officer says, "So this lady's saying that you tried to poison her child?" The dad is still shouting at this point. I say to him, "I've never met her son and I'm trying to work. This woman is an idiot. Please, can you tell her to go away?" The officer then gets his notebook out and says, "I'm gonna need to see some ID." To which I say, "Nope." He then goes on and says, "This is a serious complaint against you." He then turns and asks the bar staff if I'm the manager. I tell him I do not work here, but I'm busy. Karen's husband says, "So why did you give my son that poison?" I say to him, "Your wife came up to me to ask if he can play with the Lego house. I'm not responsible for looking after your kid. That's what parents are for." The officer says to me, "I'm still gonna need some ID and your name and address." I tell him that's not happening. You should be speaking to those two because they failed to look after their child. Karen's husband then says, "I want him arrested." The officer again asked me, "Did you give the kid that box?" I say to him, "No, I haven't gotten out of my seat for about an hour." The bar staff confirms he hasn't moved, and Karen's husband starts shouting at the bar staff. At this point, I'm getting fed up. The kid is sitting, playing with Lego men, and I'm not sure anyone's made him wash his hands. The parents have now turned their anger onto the staff, and the officer's talking into his radio. So I decide to take a quick video of the shouting parents and the child, at which point Karen totally loses her mind, screaming that it's illegal to take photos of people without permission, and that it's a crime to take a photo of a child. The husband is now screaming to the police officer saying, "You need to arrest him now and make him delete that photo." I say to him, "That's not happening. It wasn't a photo. That's a video that I'm taking for my own protection, as these two idiots are making accusations against me. I'm allowed to take photos in here, and people have no right to privacy in a public space." At that, Karen's husband goes ballistic. The officer starts to take down the info of the parents and the bar staff, and he comes over to me. He says he'll need to obtain my details, and I have to delete that photo of the child because the parents did not give their permission. The officer says, "Look, you can be arrested for not complying." I say to him, "Not by you though. Look, I'm trying to work. Why don't you go away and do something useful like making that kid wash his hands?" The officer goes on and says, "Why won't you show me ID? Are you wanted or something?" I reply, "Nope, I just don't wish to deal with uninformed, uniformed bureaucrats, and I don't wish him," pointing at the dad, "to have my details." So the officer makes the father go back to his kid, and the bar staff have taken Karen and the kid to wash his hands and things. The dad comes back complaining again. He tells the bar staff he won't be paying for the drinks that his group has had. After this, the officer leaves, and he starts screaming again, and now taking my photo. He tells me he's gonna put it on the internet, and I decide to be a jerk, so I flash my ID at him and told him he's more than welcome to, and I would be putting them on the front page of the papers, with the headline saying, "World's Worst Parents." They left, and I've never seen them again. I didn't really put them in the paper because I don't work for a paper. I did feel bad that the kid was messing around with the bait box, but at the end of the day, it's not my problem. Yeah, so that's definitely on the parents, guys, and I've read enough stories at this point to not even be surprised that the parents decided to leave their kids with a total stranger. And it's so funny how OP treated that officer. "I can't be arrested by you, you're a nobody." Like, what a way to handle a terrifying situation. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our r/IDontWorkHereLady. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I hope you didn't shake your heads too hard. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled People episode, where a psycho Karen family stalks OP for her baby, and the story's wild, guys. Go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.